So you know how yesterday we were talking about faith, right? In the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, you know. So yesterday after like that morning session, right? I was on YouTube later on in the day, and then I saw like a practical application. So I was on this training, right? And then the leader on this training was speaking about how what he did was that he took a check, he took a blank check. That's to like further like grow his faith, right? So he took a blank check. And what he did with a blank check was that he wrote the amount of money he wanted to get. So like let's say he lives in the US, right? So like let's say at the point he wanted to get $5,000. So he wrote on the check $5,000, right? That this is the amount of money he wants to make within this particular time. And then as it came to pass, he kept on increasing the amount, you know. So maybe at a point he wrote $10,000, right? Then he kept on increasing the amount as the time went on, kept on making larger and larger. And as at the time, so I watched the recording yesterday, right? The recording was done in 2020. And as at the time the recording was done in 2020, he had on his check $1 billion. And so he said it's a check he's written to himself of the amount of money he intends to make, you know. So I think that's another way we can practically apply our faith, right? And practically like bring to pass what exactly we want to happen, like to make it come to pass, you know. So I'm gonna try that out too. Maybe somebody could try out to get a blank check. Like I'm sure that we'll have different like kinds of checks from our bank, right? So he wrote it, then he made for his own. He actually met Bob Proctor practically. I'm sure maybe like physically, not practically, like physically. I'm sure maybe he went for a training of his or something, right? And then he made Bob Proctor sign on it. Bob Proctor isn't like around today, right? Unfortunately, he passed away. But then the thing is that, of course, once we have the faith and then do it ourselves, it will come to pass. You know, I guess basically anything that we have the faith enough to keep on like believing will happen, right? And of course, take steps to make happen. We eventually come to pass. And today I got another example. I was reading Think and Grow Rich this morning, right? As part of like my morning routine. And then I learned from this man. He's called Charles Schwab, right? Now it's a whole long story. I'm gonna paraphrase it. So basically, this man was working with Andrew Carnegie by then, and Andrew Carnegie was this rich steel tycoon, right? Steel tycoon. I think in the book they spoke about steel. He might have been doing other things, but in this part of Think and Grow, they spoke about steel. So this man called Charles, he worked with Andrew. Now, Charles wanted to like get more money, right? And then he birthed an idea. So with the idea that he birthed, what he decided was, he wanted to get more money, right? So what he decided was, he was going to one of Carnegie's competitors in the industry. Clifford, good morning. Just sharing a few lessons on faith while getting ready. And Clifford, thank you so much for the contact the other day. I've contacted your friend. I really appreciate it. And so as I was saying, so this man called Charles Schwab, what he did was that he went to Carnegie's competitor, right? So he wanted Carnegie's competitor to buy the steel company Carnegie had. Like it was a really huge corporation from what the book says, right? And so, like in natural sense, Carnegie wouldn't sell to his competitor, right? Like if we're looking at it naturally, he wouldn't want to sell to his competitor because like he's a competitor in business, right? So now what happened was that Charles, he went to this man who was a competitor of Carnegie. He told him that he might be willing to get Carnegie to sell the business. And then the man was like, okay, so what do you think like Carnegie would be willing to take for the business and all that? And then Charles said that, well, he'll discuss it with Carnegie. And so shortly after that, like, I don't know, like a couple of months or like some time after that, Charles now went to Carnegie, who was his boss. So Charles was working for Carnegie, right? So Charles went to Carnegie and And then he told him an idea, right? And then this demonstrates the power of the idea, right? He sold him his idea. He was like, okay, so Carnegie, what if like very soon you can retire? I think I've put a lot of makeup on this thing, right? So very soon you can retire and still have a lot of money, you know? So he sold him that idea of retiring in luxury. And so while he was selling that idea, of course, he knew that he wanted him to sell the business to the other man. The other man was called Morgan, right? So then, eventually, because of what Charles said, how he painted the idea, like how he visualized it to Carnegie decided he'd sell. Then I think he asked for $400 million or something. And then he sold the business to Morgan. Now, when he sold the business to Morgan was the man who Charles had been dealing with all along, and who he had assured that he gets Carnegie to sell his business to. So when he sold to Morgan, what happened eventually was that this Charles guy was put in charge of the business, of the new corporation that was created. So it was now larger, right? It was now a much larger corporation, and Charles was put in charge of it. So of course he'd get more income because of the fact that he was in charge of it, right? Because of the position he had now gotten. And so the idea that Napoleon Hill is trying to demonstrate with this is that this man had an idea, and he decided that he was going to work on an idea. And in different circumstances in our own environment, you know, and that idea, it eventually brought him riches, you know, because it was because of that he was made president of that new corporation, of that new larger corporation. So of course, I'm sure that you get monetary benefits, and then other benefits that have to do with becoming the president, right? Other benefits and to him and all that. Now, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill was saying that, okay, so it was because of this idea that this man eventually became like so rich, made the other man rich, you know. And so the thing is that we all have different ideas. And the book is trying to say that, okay, so how are we going to use our own ideas to become rich? That's basically what Napoleon Hill is saying, right? That if we constantly hold an idea and then like we keep finding different ways to work at it, it's actually going to come to pass, you know. And there's this man, you know, I'm sure that you've heard of T.D. Jakes when he says that God doesn't make tables, he makes trees. I really like that saying of his a lot, you know. I think it just demonstrates, I think it really is a good demonstration of the power that God has given us, you know. And so T.D. Jakes has said that sometimes we'll sit down and pray and pray and pray and pray and blow tongues and all that, right? They'll be like, oh God, do this for me, do this for me, do this for me, do this for me. And then he said in that same narrative that instead of us like using the ideas, Sada, good morning, I hope that you're doing well. Are you in Accra or are you roaming Ghana right now? I hope that all is well at work too. So I'm just sharing a few lessons on faith while getting ready. So as I was saying, so T.D. Jakes has said that we'll go to church, right? And we'll pray, God do this for me, God do this for me, God do this for me. And then he said that God will look at us and he knows that he has given us the capabilities to do the things that we are asking him of, right? But then we'll be there asking him of them, you know. And T.D. Jakes said that God, he doesn't make tables. So he has given us ideas that we need to make tables, right? He's not going to do it for us. And I think that relates to Think and Grow Rich so much, right? Because basically in the book, what Napoleon Hill is trying to demonstrate is that God has given us so much power to do what we want to do. But then sometimes we think that he's going to come down and then do particular things for us, which is not going to happen, right? So that's why he said that he doesn't make tables. He makes trees, then we have to produce. So in our daily lives, right, if we visualize what we want, and I think that's another reason why it's important to have our vision, right, straight. That's why it's important to have it clear. You know, you can modify it along the way, you know, of course, but then of course it's good to begin with a clear one, so that then we know what we are working towards, you know, and so that then we can get inspired ideas of how to implement the things that we want to come to pass, right? So let's say we have our vision clear. You see, we'll start to have inspired ideas. Yesterday, I think a couple of days ago I was speaking about how we can write down our vision, and then when we write it down, we get inspired ideas of how to carry it's out, right? So when we know what we want, with the different ideas that we get, we'll be able to make that vision come to pass. But then if we don't know what we want in the first place, then it might be a bit more difficult to get inspired ideas, since we haven't settled like our mind on exactly where we are going. Let's say we want to go to Sinyani, right? And then maybe we can go to Sinyani by plane, or we can go to Sinyani by bus. Maybe we can take trotro, like anyone who wants to go to Sinyani, right? If we don't know we are going to Sinyani in the first place, we won't start to think of different ideas of how to get to Sinyani. So that's why it's important to know where we are going, And the truth is that we can always modify. We don't have to be perfect. Yesterday, as I was listening to this interview which the leader did in 2020, he was saying that for him, he doesn't believe that in your 20s, like, you have to have like everything like settled down, like you know where you're going, like Charlie, like you have the dream laid down. He said that it's good to have urgency, right? And that's act with urgency. But then he said that as you go through life, you learn a lot. And then for him, he said that if you get to 30 and then like you don't have, it's like at least some kind of concrete plan, that is when you begin to get worried. But then when you're from 20 to 30, for him, it's like enjoy life small, right? And for what I'm saying right now, I think we can all take it in our different ways, interpret it in our different ways, and then see how it works for us, right? But then I think that the basic thing is just to know that it's good to chart our course, right? The better we've charted our course, the more ideas we can have to make it happen, And then remember that recently I went to Greater Works, right? And I think I shared a few lessons from there. And I shared of how there's this pastor, Matthew Ashimolo. I think he's Nigerian, but he's based in UK, from what I learned from the preacher. And Pastor Matthew Ashimolo was speaking about how we all have latent skills, right? We all have ideas deep within us, and then how it's up to us to decide what we want to do with these ideas that we have. And he said it's our responsibility to do more. And he said that even with these ideas that we have, right? So like, let's say we want to achieve a particular thing, and then we have that idea set down or written down. What those ideas could help us to do is to get into the fast lane of life. Because these ideas would definitely at the end of the day bring us some more money, right? And then when they bring us that more money, we'll get into the fast lane of life. Now let me describe the fast lane of life a bit more. So he said that the fast lane of life is when you have different assets that are contributing to your income. And so basically you're not depending on one source of income, and you are getting to your goals faster, right? You're enjoying this life faster. He said that if we're in the slow lane of life, we are basically depending on one source of income, and so we have to wait, take our time to do particular things. But then if we're in the fast lane, if we have these ideas, if we've used our latent skills, and then capitalize, there's another word. Basically, let me just say the word benefits, because I've forgotten the word I'm looking for, right? Then if we've used our latent skills, right, if we've used them well, and then if we've used them to bring income to us, what will happen to us is that we'll move to the fast lane of life if we continue to do that, right? If we continue to find different ways to use our income, to use our skills to create some income, we'll move to the fast lane of life. And he said this fast lane of life, we get to enjoy life when we are much younger. Let's say we started switching to the fast lane when we are 28, when we are 30, when we are 35, when we are 40. We'll enjoy life much more than somebody who waited until they were 50, 55, 60, they will go on pension, they were suddenly let me create other sources of income. For him, he said that at that time, you're basically old, so you can't really, even when the money comes, you can't really enjoy it that much, So he said that the key thing for us to do is to use our skills, to use our latent skills, and relating this to what Bishop T.D. Jakes said about God making tables and making trees, this could be another way that relates to that, because basically God will give us God will give us ideas, right? He won't go and do the thing for us, but then at least He'll give us some ideas. Then we can use the ideas to create the income. I mean, even if you look at the rich people, the world right now, the wealthy people, which very soon will be among them, of course, once you keep like implementing ideas and like keep consistently going, right? If we look at them, it's ideas, right? They had particular ideas, they built upon them, maybe like they built a chain of shops, or like all the amazing things Elon Musk is doing, or what Bill Gates did, right? They had particular ideas, then they built on those ideas and they created an income. So Pastor Matthew Ashimolo said that we should use ideas, we should use our skills, we should use our talents, we should build upon them. And you know, thankfully today there are so many avenues to build upon our skills, right? If you go to YouTube, there's so many, like as I was saying yesterday, I was learning from YouTube. If you go to YouTube, there are so many ideas of how we can use our different skills, right? There are so many podcasts we can learn from. Like thankfully the internet has made it so much easier to learn these days, right? If you go to Spotify, it's a free app. I use Android. I think it works on iPhone. I don't know, but I'm sure it should. But you can just check it out, right? Or whichever podcast app you want to use. So basically, with the podcast, like you can just find different people who are also making use of their ideas, their God-given ideas, and then get inspiration from them. And then you see as you listen to them more and more and more, because they've went ahead in life and then done some of the things that we want to do, it will just be easier to pick up from them and then do those things, you know. Sometimes we don't really have to reinvent the wheel. Today on our business page, our team leader, Dr. Kelvin, he was saying that successful people, they've already like done certain things, you know, so it's not all of them that we now have to go and then like decide that, oh, we really want to do a different thing. I mean, of course, innovate with the God-given ideas that we have, right? But then basically what I'm trying to say is that if some people have already done the thing, and there's a way that you can learn from them, you can learn some do's and don'ts for them, it makes life easier, you know, it makes life much easier. And that's where YouTube, that's where the podcast, I mean, like even this makeup I'm learning to do, it's because people have put it out there that I'm trying to like, that I've gotten the opportunity to learn from them, right? And so basically, whatever we want to do, whichever way we want to maximize the God-given skills that we have, we can decide that we are going to do so by learning from people who are also maximizing their God-given skills, letting them inspire us. Yesterday, just before I went to bed, I was scrolling through Instagram and I saw Kevin Hart. And Kevin Hart is opening what's it called? A restaurant. I think it's called Hart Foods or something. From what I saw on his on his wall, right? And so what I learned from this is that, as I was saying, the rich people, they're in the fast lane of life, you know, as I was saying about Pastor Matthew Ashimolo. And then they continue to create different sources of income for themselves. Just like, I mean, Kevin Hart, we all know. Okay, I don't know if he started with comedy. I was going to say we all know he started with comedy, but maybe he was in something else before which we don't know about, right? But at least we know he's famous for comedy, right? And what he is doing is he's created lots of income sources from the comedy he started with, right? So we can also take an example from him. So with the different ideas that God will inspire us with, right? We can start with what we already have, like the source of income that we currently have. And then decide that with this source of income, we are going to maybe like save parts of it or invest part of it and get a return. Or for money, I guess it's up to us to decide how best we want to handle it, right? Just making sure that we are putting some aside to start up another source of income, you know, because of course we all can't survive on one source of income. So, you know, just as I would say about Kevin Hart, about why he could be an example to us in the situation. So is that I know he has gym wear. He has, I think it's called Papetitis. So I've seen himself and his wife modeling it from time to time, you know. And so basically, he had some money to start with, right? And then once he has some money to start with, he got different ideas. When he got different ideas, he decided to build on his ideas. And then create other income sources. So similarly, when God gives us ideas, we can use the current source of income that we have. Maybe save that up and use it to start something else. Maybe it's not even a physical store that we are starting or a physical like enterprise. Maybe it has to do with using the brain capacity, because God gave us an amazing brain, right? Can do so much, can lead us to so much impact, so much wealth, right? So as I was saying, maybe you decide that you want to use your brain, so then it wouldn't really be like be about money for setting up a physical shop or anything, right? It would probably be about creating partnerships. Because of course, they say this thing that wealth is in people, right? And wealth is in our networks. So maybe you want to use your mindset, your skill sets that God gave you, like brain-wise, right? You want to use them to create your income. So you could learn from people who are doing this. You could use their podcast, you could use their YouTube, learn from people, maybe like, how do I start charging for my services? How do I start creating value for people that I work with, you know? Once you learn from that, you can start to implement them, you know? I also run these discussions on Twitter. Tomorrow we have an amazing Twitter space. I run them every 2 weeks on Wednesdays. You could also join them because we have different people coming at different times to show us how we can use our skill sets. And in one of our very first discussions, I think in the third or fourth week, we had a consultant, a friend of mine. I came to know her through work, right? She's called Sana. She set up her own consultancy. And so basically she's using the skills that God gave her, right? Like her mind to create income. And so that's another thing that we can do. And so the reason why I do this space is that I think it's good for us to share knowledge, right? It's good for us to learn from each other. And that's another thing that I was saying about copying, that sometimes you don't even have to reinvent the wheel. People have done it. So we just build on what they've done, learn from them, and then we move with that. And then once we do so, eventually we even have the opportunity to teach others. You know, that's even like another income source that we can create. You know, people have gotten to that level where like they are now teachers of the things that they do, and these things they learn from other people. You know, so truly, it all starts with ideas. Once we have the ideas of what we want to accomplish, we really are limitless, right? There really is nothing that we can't do once we set our minds to it. So let's remember that. Let's remember to cultivate our ideas. Let's remember to write them down, you know. At different times of the day, we get inspiration. Write it down, you know, and then probably at that time, you might not have the time to really think about it, but you can write it down. And don't, when you wake up, you're done praying and everything, maybe different ideas will come to you. There's a saying in Tree that Sunyama Ajin or something. Yes. I think I got the saying right. So basically what that saying means is that Tree is my language, right? From Ghana, Tree is my language. So what that saying basically means is that when you go to sleep, when you go to sleep and wake up, you get different ideas. And so as I was saying, when the different ideas come to you, you could write them down. Once you write them down, then you start to find different ways to begin to accomplish them. Then once you've got those ways to accomplish them, you know that you're on your way to using like all those amazing skills God has gave us. Because I guess as Napoleon Hill is demonstrating in Think and Grow Rich, it's all about having the idea first of all, then holding on to that desire and then making it come to pass. So once we have our ideas, once we hold on to the desire, once we hold on with desire, once we keep working and then they'll come to pass and then we keep learning. And then the thing is that when you have your idea, don't be afraid to make mistakes. I think it's sometimes we're afraid to make mistakes because then we are worried that this person will judge me, this person will say this person will say that. But then the truth is that if we are to do that, we'll not truly do the things that we came here to do, I think on Sunday I was watching Gary Vee and he said that some people are still holding back on the life they could live because of Tyrone from 4th grade. So let's say in Ghana, maybe like because of Kwesi or Joshua or Kojo from 4th grade or from class 4, right? We'll be holding back on the things that we should do or on the things that we can do, So let's not. And then he said that. So imagine that you'd be thinking of the opinion of these people to the extent that you wouldn't go on and then do the things that God wants to do on this earth. You wouldn't go on and implement your ideas because you're afraid of what they say. And then he said that you get to age 40, you get to age 50, you get to age 60, and you're like, oh, but I should have done that thing, but I was worried about this person. So he said that when you have the ideas, just flow with them. We make mistakes. He said if we are afraid of making mistakes because of those people in the 4th grade, then we'll basically never live life as much as we're supposed to. So let's go out there, let's make the mistakes. People might laugh in the first place, it's fine. People might not agree with us in the first place, it's fine. We'll still find a way to get around it. So I wish an amazing rest of the day now, and it's